is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
Hey Hoopheads, wanted to take a minute to shout out our partners and friends at Dr. Dish Basketball. We've had their partnership manager and training specialist Jefferson Mason and marketing manager Nick Bartlett on the show in the past, and we couldn't be more excited about what they're doing for the game of basketball. Their Dr. Dish shooting machines are undoubtedly the most advanced and user-friendly machines on the market, and truly accelerate skill development faster than ever. Beyond efficient reps, Dr. Dish provides training expertise and versatility designed to develop complete players. The new Dr. Dish CT machine has further revolutionized basketball training with over 150 plus on-demand individual and team workouts from some of the best coaches and trainers in the game. These workouts include video instruction and combine game-like shooting drills with ball handling, conditioning, and agility drills. Along with workouts, the Dr. Dish training management system also provides stat tracking and analytics to track progress and ensure accountability. These are just a few reasons why top programs like Duke, North Carolina, Louisville, Florida, Baylor, and countless others are upgrading to Dr. Dish. Learn more at drdishbasketball.com. Follow their incredible content at Dr. Dish B-Ball on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And make sure you mention the Hoopheads podcast to get $300 off your next Dr. Dish purchase. That's a great deal, Hoopheads. Get out and get your Dr. Dish shooting machine today. Welcome to the 11th edition of the Coach's Corner Roundtable on the Hoopheads podcast. Each episode of the Coach's Corner Roundtable will feature our all-star lineup of guests answering a single basketball question. A new Coach's Corner Roundtable will drop around the 15th of each month. November's Roundtable question is, how do you communicate your program's philosophy, culture, and expectations to parents? Our coaching lineup this month includes Matt Grahn from the University of Dallas, Joe Harris from Lake Chelan High School, Bobby Jordan from Wagner College, William Payne from Miami University Hamilton, Don Showalter from USA Basketball, John Shulman from the University of Alabama Huntsville, Joe Stasyszyn from Unleashed Potential, Lee Swanson from Bunker Hill High School, and Tyler Whitcomb from West Michigan Aviation Academy. Please enjoy this roundtable episode of the Hoopheads podcast, and once you're finished listening, please give the show a 5-star rating and review. Make sure you're subscribed to the Hoopheads pod so you never miss an episode. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, and YouTube. If you haven't already, please tell a coaching colleague or friend about the Hoopheads podcast so they can listen and learn from some of the best minds in the game. Matt Grahn, recruiting coordinator at the University of Dallas.
In our program, the way we communicate our culture is we have the players determine 3 key values that they want to represent. And this year happened to be purpose, resilience, and togetherness. And basically what we do is we incorporate that into even our informal conversations with the kids. We'll relate it to their studies, their classwork, life in general, their family, girlfriend, anything that we can make a parallel between the game and the bigger game, which is life. More formally, we'll talk about our 3 key values and what our culture means after practice in the post-practice huddle, and we'll have guys define all 3 words, and we'll actually ask them what it means to them, and they communicate it to their teammates. During practice, one of the things that I'm very conscious of is asking kids, does what you do fit into, and we call it PRT, the purpose, resilience, and togetherness. Does that fit into PRT? So take, for example, one of our players decides that he's going to complain about an official's call or dog it back on transition defense. And I'll ask him, does that fit into the PRT, our culture? The last way that we really communicate it formally is I send out, thanks to Coach Showalter, with Mind Candy. Our Mind Candy comes via text message, and I send it out to the guys. And anything that reminds me of any one of those three key values, I'll send it to the guys randomly throughout the week, and I try and do 2 pieces of mind candy per week. The most important way, however, is that we as a coaching staff try to model our culture for our guys and show them what it means to be purposeful and resilient and do it together.
Joe Harris, Lake Chelan High School, Lake Chelan, Washington. Hoopshead Nation, this is Joe Harris from Chelan High School, and I'm excited to be jumping back on this month's roundtable question. It asks us, how do we communicate our program's philosophy, the culture, and expectations to our parents? I think first and foremost, you need to meet with those parents, and you need to lay it out, to be open, honest, and clear with them in what your program stands for, and then also send it home. Really, it should be considered a privilege and to play the game, and there's many sacrifices that are involved in this. You should lay out what standards you have, and this should be evident in all phases of your program. You as the coach should reinforce these things every day, from how you walk into practice to everything that happens throughout practice to games to bus rides, how your players and coaches and staff that you have interact with other staff members in the school or the building you're in or on road trips. All of these things should be followed and are guidelines that are expected of all of your participants. Bobby Jordan, Wagner College, Staten Island, New York.
I think the biggest way that I was able to communicate philosophy, expectations, culture to parents in the past was really just having one-on-one meetings with parents. One thing that I love that we did at IMG was we had a parents' weekend, similar to how you're in school and you go to a parent-teacher conference. Just a quick 15-minute one-on-one meeting with the coach. And really that was my time to, explain to them my philosophy, my expectations, the culture that I like to build within my team. And I think the biggest thing in those meetings was really being upfront with the parents of what I had saw up to that point from their son, how dedicated they were to the team, whether they were the best player on the team or the last guy on the bench, how much were they invested in our team, not just in themselves. So I thought that was one of the biggest things that I came away with from those meetings, was really just being upfront with the parents and letting them know what I had seen to that point from their son. And now you explain to them, well, what can they do to get better and how can they change it? And I think that way you kind of avoid all the meetings that might occur during the season, like how do I get more playing time or why isn't my son playing? I think you got to be upfront from the start. You don't want to sugarcoat anything. Let them know where they stand. Let them know where they stand as of today and what can change from that. So those were the biggest things I thought that really enabled me to communicate to my parents philosophy and culture.
William Payne, head coach, University of Miami, Hamilton.
This is an amazing question for me to answer because I have a very firm line on how I operate when it comes to parents being a college basketball coach. We as a program, regardless of what school I am the head coach of, always has a philosophy of basketball has to be a vehicle to get you to bigger and better things in life. I always have a team meeting to start the year off in which I ask players to raise their hand if they believe that they have an opportunity to be a professional basketball player. Inevitably, many players throughout the meeting will raise their hand and to say that they think they have that opportunity. More often than not, many will raise their hand that do not have an opportunity truly. But after I've asked this question, I then go on to ask kind of a second part to this question of, okay, now that you think that you can be a pro player, how many of you believe that you can be a professional player and make a living in doing so? And after I've asked that question, because it's a much different question, I often see thoughts come across people's faces, and typically I get my point across with that question, and many people lower their hands and maybe one or two, if any, have their hands raised after that. So after I've asked that question, I then go on to share the philosophy of how we have to use basketball at our level to prepare us for life and all of the challenges that we will face. And so after I do that team meeting, one of the things that I'm kind of adamant about, and some parents don't like it within our program, but one of the things I'm adamant about is I don't share a lot of program details, if any, with parents. One of the things that I am very firm on is these are young men that have, they've reached the maturity age of 18. Now, that doesn't always mean anything, but I deal with basketball-related business with my players. I also have a parent team meeting every year prior to the start of the season where I go over the rule book with the parents. I share with them that our door is always open to discuss any grade issues, any personal issues, any growing pains that players may have, anything that they are facing that is detrimental to them being a student or a student athlete. And we have ample time to discuss those things, and parents always have my number. They always have the ability to reach out to me. But I share our philosophy of basketball as a bigger vehicle directly with the parents through communication and through demonstrating the quote-unquote walking the walk. I am adamant about the young men having to stand on their 2 feet and handle situations on their own. Parents sign a contract also understanding that I don't discuss playing time, I don't discuss starting, I don't discuss any basketball-related situations with them. I discuss it with my players. Initially, it isn't always received well, but the further we go, it tends to go over pretty well, believe it or not. It's when you set those firm expectations and boundaries in the beginning. I've always had success with parents and them understanding why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I'm very firm and I'm very strict about my players' grades and class attendance, and I show them those kind of things throughout the season. I require my players to have signed forms and slips for every study table they attend, for every class that they attend, every time they go to a tutor, anything like that. They're required to have signed slips. And so when a parent understands that my philosophy is about teamwork and using basketball as a vehicle, and then I back that up with those slips and accountability is the big thing for us, then I think that they start to buy in and relax a little bit and say, okay, I've got to kind of take a step back. Because at the end of the day, I don't deal with the basketball aspect with parents. So that's what we do at Miami University Hamilton. We just we lead by accountability and dependability. I have 5 points that every player has to meet to play for me, and so I share that directly with parents. But more so than that, we do it through our actions. So it's the open door policy with everything else. It's the accountability that we hold our players to, how we don't let them play if their grades drop below a C, how we don't let them attend team functions if certain things are happening. So it's a nonstop process where we start with the team meetings, we back it up with our actions, we walk the walk throughout the season, and so we just always do so with our actions. Hopefully this answer was somewhat helpful, and sorry that it was a little long. Have a great day, guys.
Don Showalter, USA Basketball.
Don Showalter here from USA Basketball. And the question is, how do you communicate your philosophy, culture, and expectations to the parents of your program? Well, I think there's several ways that this needs to be done. First of all, it's not a one-time thing. I think it needs to be done throughout the year. But at the beginning of the year, you need to set your standards explicitly for the parents. That means that give your purpose and value of education-based athletics, because a lot of the parents don't understand or are not familiar with this concept. Secondly, I think you need to share your sportsmanship expectations with parents. It's important for them to know that what respect has to be shown to officials, coaches, and players and opponents, and everyone else involved in the contest. So these are standards that I think you need to give to your parents. And then clearly explain how they should contact you as a coach. What guidelines you have and your administration has, clearly explain to them what guidelines are needed to contact you as a coach. And I always felt that I was always open to meet with parents, the next day or two after a contest, because I think that they are clearly part of your program, and you need to finesse them in a way that they are part of your program and have a positive outlook on it. And the more you have communication, the better off you are. So that's part of your philosophy. That's part of what you expect. At those meetings, though, I always have their son in on those meetings. I think that's important for them to be aware that, yeah, they can meet with you as a coach, but their son will be a part of it. So I think here's some things that are really important. And then clearly explain what your role is as a coach. You are responsible for determining who starts and how many minutes each athlete plays in a game. Those are two decisions that are earned in practice. But that's part of your philosophy and expectations to parents. And then, be real conscious of giving them timelines as far as here's what practices are, here's when they are, here's when they start, here's when they end. I think that kind of communication shows that you are very aware of what the parents are important, and that you want to communicate exactly when and where games are, practices are, other team activities. Thank you. Have a great season.
As you've listened to the Hoopheads podcast, one common topic that continually comes up in our conversations is character. I'm fortunate to be associated with the Positive Coaching Alliance, a national nonprofit movement that provides valuable tools, training, and resources for coaches, athletes, parents, and administrators that is centered around sports and educational psychology and organizational behavior research. PCA combines this research with practical advice from a national advisory board of top pro and college athletes and coaches who utilize PCA principles at the highest levels of competition. Through a partnership with our local Cleveland chapter of the PCA, we are pleased to offer a discount code to allow you, our listeners, to take a PCA online course for just $20. To take advantage of this offer, visit the store on positivecoach.org and enter the discount code HoopHeads20. That's HoopHeads20 with 2 capital H's. Coaches, I hope you'll take advantage of this great offer from the Positive Coaching Alliance and help us continue to grow the game. John Shulman, University of Alabama, Huntsville, and the 720 Sports Group.
The question is, how do you communicate your culture and your philosophy and your beliefs really to parents? That is not an easy question. This is John Shulman, and I would try my best. I really think, number one, I think it's probably the most important thing that you can do as a coach, especially in high school. College, your parents are, in most normal situations, your parents are not around. Most of your parents are out of town, and so they're not heavily involved. But high school, they're heavily involved. And I think as a coach, it certainly helped me become a dad while I was coaching. But as a coach, you have to understand I guess you got to understand really what parents are concerned with. And they always want the well-being for their child. But I think as a coach, you also got to understand why they're coming to your games. Yeah, they want to see the team win, but they're coming to the games to watch their child. And they want to see their child. They're not watching the other four. They're not watching in a realistic way what's going on. They're watching their child. So you're going to have to, on the front end, I don't think it's done through email. I don't think it's done through a letter. I think it's done through a mandatory parent meeting. And I think you need to help them understand, and I have a great story to help them, but help them understand where the parent fits into this. They're not at practice every day. They don't really understand what you're doing. And really, in theory, my father put my oldest brother, my next oldest brother, in a really bad spot. And I say this as in all parents want their kids to shoot and score and to do all that. Well, you're going to have to ask those parents very simply, who are they supposed to please when they're on the basketball court? Are they supposed to please the parent, or are they supposed to please the coach? Because parents, not wanting to do it, but parents put kids in a really bad spot. Shoot it, while the coach is yelling, let's run our offense or running a play. The parents don't know. So I took a lot of time and talked to the parents about this. Just cheer for your kid. Cheer for your kid. Be there for your kid. Let me coach your kid. Because if you tell him to shoot and I tell him not to shoot, you're really doing that kid a disservice. So I think you have to do it. Explain your values, explain your core values, talk to them about it. If the parent truly knows that you care for them and you love them, it will soften the blow when the tough times come. And the tough times, if they haven't come, they're coming. So it's going to be an issue. Get some points on the front end so you don't have to deal with it on the back end. But I think you have to look them eye to eye and face to face and communicate your values and your core values in person at a parent meeting. Also, I would not meet with the parent about playing time. I meet with the kids about playing time, meet with the parents, just tell them you got a rule that you can't do it. You wish you could, but you can't do it. But do all that on the front end, but do it in person. And I just think looking eye to eye, I think that's the best way to handle it. Hope this helps. Thanks.
Joe Stasyszyn, Unleash Potential, Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Joe's Decision, Unleash Potential. This month's question is, how do you communicate your program's culture, philosophy, and expectations to parents? When I was a head high school basketball coach, I would have a preseason parents meeting. And in that meeting, I would discuss our coaching philosophy, our standards, our expectations for parents, and try to make that as clear as I can to parents. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have things that come up during the season that maybe you've already laid out. But, sometimes you hear coaches say that they don't communicate with parents or they don't talk to parents. I think in today's coaching world, I think you have to be able to communicate with parents. And you have to talk to parents, and you have to have a relationship with parents. I think if you don't do that, you're just setting yourself up for problems down the road during the season. One of the things that I talk to parents about is I always say in my parents' meetings that fair does not mean equal. I think in today's society, I think that we're under a society where everyone should play, everyone should get a medal, everybody should get a ribbon. I just think you have to make that very clear to parents that you'll be fair with each and every one of their sons or daughters, but that does not mean that they will be given equal playing time, because that's always the biggest issue with parents is playing time. And one thing I do communicate with parents is I will, if they have a concern about their son or daughter, my door is always open, but I will not discuss playing time with them. I think, if one of the things I communicate to parents, if a player has a concern or a problem or something that they'd like to talk to me about, my door is always open. And I think that teaches them a valuable lesson how to handle their own concerns or problems rather than having their parent come in and speak for them and talk for them. I think that's a life lesson that they learn. The other thing I talk to parents about is, especially with recruiting today, how a lot of coaches are not only college coaches are not only recruiting the players, but they're also having to recruit the parent, because at the end of the day, they have to deal with the parent also. So I tried to make the parents understand that how they act during games can be seen and heard by college recruiters that are there. And if a parent is coaching from the stands and the player is communicating back and forth with the parent during the course of the game that has a negative effect on their recruiting. I can say that I know of a player in a particular class, he's a top 50 player in the nation, and two high major programs have already decided not to recruit that player anymore because of the parents and the parents' behavior. So, I just think that's something that you have to make parents aware of, that, they can be seen and heard during a game. I really talk to them about not coaching their child from the stands during the game. I think that's something that you have to tell parents today, because that goes on all over the place, from youth basketball to high school basketball and all over. So I just think that's a very, very important topic that needs to be discussed. Also talk to parents about, their behavior and how it makes their child feel. I think if you're honest and upfront with parents, that goes a long way. But again, it does not mean that those subjects won't come up sometime during the year. But, one thing you have to understand is those parents see that kid or that player differently than you do. Even though we're talking about the same kid or the same player, in their eyes, that kid or player is their child, and you're their coach, and we view that kid or player two very different ways. So that's something I think, if you keep that in mind, helps you to understand where parents are coming from. So I'd say that's the main thing that I talk about. Other than the general standards, the team standards and rules, I have the parents sign a form saying that what we covered, and they understand everything that has been covered. So we get a parent signature on that. And again, it does not mean that you will not have problems later, but I think you really help yourself by being upfront with parents, and also allowing parent communication. You have to deal with parents. By ignoring them or not talking to them, that's not going to work against you, I believe, in the long run. So that's my view on the question. Thank you very much.
Lee Swanson, Bunker Hill High School, Claremont, North Carolina.
So the question was, how do we communicate culture, philosophy, and expectations to parents? I think that's a great question. I don't think this is something that's easy to do. I think in today's culture that there's probably less trust in coaching. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, because these are people's kids, but I don't think kids and parents are as willing to buy into roles as maybe they were years ago and as trusting of the coach. But I think we can complain about that, or we can try to find a way to communicate it. I try to meet with my parents. I'm going to try to meet with each one individually, kind of explain where I see their kids' role at. I like them to be able to see our culture, hopefully by how hard their kids working. Also, we try to promote what that looks like with our standards, and really communicate those things. Hopefully our kids know the expectations. If they don't know the expectations, it's hard for the parents to know expectations. I think really, if you're genuine with your parents and honest, even if it's, I hate to say brutally honest, because I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, but just honest as you can be with factoring in that is their kid. Most parents will try to at least meet you in the middle, even if they don't see eye to eye. I think being willing to talk to parents even during the season is important. I think you can say, I'm not going to talk about playing time, but those parents are still going to find a way to vent that, whether it be the athletic director or the school board or other parents. I think you're better to talk with those people and agree to disagree. But I think culture is one of those things that if they can feel it by the way your kids play, the way your kids carry themselves, I think it'll transcend them a little bit more as well.
Tyler Whitcomb, West Michigan Aviation Academy, Grand Rapids, Michigan.
How to Communicate Your Program's Philosophy, Culture, and Expectations to Parents by Tyler Whitcomb, the varsity boys basketball coach and athletic director at West Michigan Aviation Academy, and the CEO and owner of Tyler Whitcomb Basketball Coaching Courses. We're going to start off by starting right when the season begins, probably the best time to communicate your program's philosophy. And what we do is we bring in the player and their parents, and we have a meeting going over our evaluation process, how we evaluate the player, what they need to work on, set some goals, and we go over our expectations to the players and the ultimate expectations of our team. And we do this right away with bringing the parents in so they know exactly where we stand with their kid. We follow up with just the kid during the summer, kind of let him know where he stands, and we want the kid to go home and communicate his expectations and basically our overall meeting with the kid to his parents. And then when the season starts, after tryouts and we have our team selected, what we do is we bring in the team and we go over our philosophy, culture, and expectations. And then with the players, again, we tell them we want not only their email and phone number, but also both parents, not just one parent, but both parents, or if they have a stepdad, if however many parents they have, or guardians, we get all their information, their email, their phone number, and then what we do is we turn around and we send them an email of what we talked about with the team, go over their expectations, philosophy, culture, and then right before the season starts, we have a big, whatever season it is, but parents meeting, we go over our expectations, rules, and we always like to communicate and we like to be early. If we see a problem going wrong, we like to bring the parent in right away and have a meeting with them and go over again, just going over our expectations and our culture with the parents. I hope this helps. Thank you.
Thanks for checking out this month's roundtable. We'll be back next month with another question for our all-star lineup of coaches.
Thanks for listening to the Hoop Heads podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.